Hi everyone, and welcome to our video on summarizing nonfiction texts. Before we start, make sure you have your video visa on the left side of your notebook, ready to use to reflect on the video once you're done, and that you have your note taker on the right. Make sure you're following along and that you're using the video to accurately complete your notes. Make sure you pause the video to give you time to write in your best handwriting, otherwise it's no use to you later. And rewatch the video at least once just to make sure that you didn't miss anything while you were pausing to write. So your note taker looks like this. What we're going to do today is we're going to go over what does it mean to summarize nonfiction text first at the very top. Then I'm going to give you the strategy I like to use, which is the 5W plus C summarizing strategy. And you'll notice I have the little hand there as a visual reminder. And then we're going to try the strategy out for ourselves to give you an example of what it looks like when you use it on a text. So first, summarizing nonfiction texts. This means that you reduce large sections of the text to just their most important points and main ideas. Remember that when you summarize a text, it has to be shorter than the original text, and it has to leave out all the little details and just give you the big important ideas. So make sure you have this part written at the very top of your note taker. So now let's look at the strategy, the 5W plus C strategy. The 5 W's are who, what, when, where, and why. And the C is the conclusion. You'll notice I have my little hand there with the thumb starting who, what, when, where, why, and the conclusion is what wraps everything up, so it's right in the middle. If you've seen my summarizing narrative text video, you'll recognize this little hand. I like to use it for both summarizing strategies. You just have to differentiate between the nonfiction and the narrative. So for nonfiction, remember that nonfiction texts are informational. They give you facts and details about a particular topic. So those facts and details are what go in the who, what, when, where, why. So let's go over what each of these are and write these down on your notes. The who is just the main topic of the text. Who is this text talking about? Is it talking about dolphins? Is it talking about the state of California? Is it talking about bees? Who doesn't mean it has to be a person. It's just the main topic of the text. What is the important event or action of the text as it relates to the topic? So what are they trying to tell you about the main topic? If it's the main topic was bees, what about bees? When is pretty self-explanatory. When did it all happen? Now, pay attention that this does not need to be a precise date. It can even use, phrases like before this, after this, during this time period, in the evenings, every morning, in the summer. It can be just a general time. It doesn't have to be a specific date. Where is just the location where everything is happening. Why is the reasons for it happening. All of these go back to the what, okay? All of these relate to what is happening is the what. And then your conclusion is just the important significance or wrap up of the information. This is similar to in fiction, this would be the theme. Nonfiction doesn't have a theme, but they usually have some sort of conclusion. Like, how did the author wrap up this text? Like, what idea did they want to leave with you when you were done reading this text? Okay, so your notes should look like this. We have our summarizing strategy all filled out. Now we're ready to go on to the example part. So we will read a short nonfiction text. Then you're going to try to use the 5W plus C strategy to write a summary of it. And I'm going to give you mine so that you can have an accurate example to write in your notes. So let's start. This is our text, the corpse flower, and you can see the picture of that flower in the background. The Tidum arum is called the corpse flower for a good reason. Although this giant tropical flower, 10 to 15 feet tall, blooms rarely and for a short period of time, its flower gives off such a horrible stench that it has been compared to the smell of rotting flesh. The terrible odor is very useful to the plant as it attracts beetles and flies that help in pollination and allow the plant to reproduce. The plant can also heat itself up to 98 degrees Fahrenheit to further fool the insects into thinking it really is a dead animal. When dung beetles and flesh flies detect the smell of what they think is the corpse of an animal, they go in search for it. They actually arrive to the stem and bloom of the Tidum arum and climb inside. The result of the flower's deception is that the insects end up pollinating the plant and helping the cycle continue. The flower only blooms once every few decades, and it can be up to a 7-year process to get there. First, the flower must store energy during its non-flowering years to be able to bloom. Then, once it has the energy it needs, the blooming happens in 2 stages. The female and male flowers form 2 rings at the top and bottom of the giant stem. The stench of the flower draws beetles that climb in and out of the bloom and gather pollen and spread it to other flowers. When it's done, the flower collapses and the process is over. Even though the smell of the Tidum arum may not be the kind you typically think of coming from a flower, you have to admit that its use of deception is impressive and stinky. So now I want you to try and pause the video here and try to use this strategy yourself first on a separate sheet of paper. I want you to do it separately because in case there's something that you need to adjust, in case there's a mistake you make, you don't have to put it on your notes just yet. And remember, it's perfectly okay if you don't get it right this first time. It takes practice. It takes examples for you to do it right, but it'd be nice to try it just to see if you can do it. Once you're done with that, come back and press play, and I'm going to show you my summary, and that's what we're going to use to help you fill out the rest of your notes so that you have an accurate example of what this strategy should look like. All right, so if you're here, that means you already paused the video, you already tried this strategy on your own, and now you're ready to see mine. So let me show you what mine looks like. Who? The Tidum arum flower. That's who this text was mainly about. What was it that the author wanted me to know? That it smells like a dead animal when it blooms. When? About every 7 years. Where? This one wasn't a big feature of the text, but if you notice in the first sentence, it did say that it was from tropical areas. Why does it smell like a dead animal when it blooms? To attract insects to pollinate it. And the conclusion was that it has a bad smell, but it's impressive. Notice too that the way that I filled it out was just short, sweet, to the point, right? It wasn't full sentences here. These are just notes. This is just the basics: who, what, when, where, why, conclusion. That's it. Now what we do is take all of that and put it together into full sentences in a short paragraph that will give us the actual summary. So when you do that, you have to look at it and see, how does it make sense to put it together? It should also reflect the way the text has the information written in, okay? So your summary should be very similar to the text. It's just going to be a lot shorter. So this is the way I put it together. The Tidum arum is a tropical flower that only blooms about every 7 years. It has the smell of a dead animal and uses it to attract insects to pollinate it. Although it smells really bad, it's an impressive plant. I basically gave you all the information that other long text had. It's just a lot shorter. It leaves out all the specific details about the process it takes to bloom, the types of insects that come, how they pollinate it, all of that stuff, right? I just got to the point. This is what your summary should look like. So I want you to use both of these information to fill out the last part of your notes. So this bottom part where it has the example should have it filled out like I just did right now. If you forgot to write it down, go back on the video and look at each of those parts to see what I wrote so that you can fill it in. This will ensure that you have a correct example on here that you can later refer to if you need to look back at it to remind you how you need to do it. So now that you have all that done, remember to make sure that your notes have been completed accurately. And like I said, you can go back in the video if you need to rewatch something to make sure you wrote it down correctly. Complete your visa to help you reflect on the video. Post your part A, which is the ask a question, in Google Classroom or wherever else your teacher has asked you to do so. And be ready to discuss the video and apply the skill. Remember that applying the skill means actually using what you learned during the time that you're reading. So when you read a nonfiction text, you should start thinking of that 5W plus C. Who, what, when, where, why, and conclusion, so that you can create your own summary based on the text you read and ensure that you have only the most important parts and not all the little details. Once you have all of this done, you'll be ready to go.